Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson just exposed Michelle Obama.
Her hostility toward the guy is like unbelievable, and it's been
everything
obvious
she says is negative.
The pair discussed her recent comments about her marriage to Barack, and in another appearance, Michelle returned to her usual identity politics routine on Jay Shetty's podcast.
And I see that when I'm driving around LA, I'm just looking in the faces of folks who could be victim, and I'm wondering, how are you feeling?
Yes, she's a psychic now.
I'm Michelle Obama.
I'm Freddie Colton, and today's video is not to be missed, so let's jump right into it.
Well, in this current climate for me, it's, what's happening to immigrants. So it's not the fear for myself anymore. I drive around in a 4-car motorcade with a police escort. I'm Michelle Obama. I do still worry about my daughters in the world, even though they are somewhat recognizable. So my fears are for what I know is happening out there in streets all over the city. And now that we have leadership that is sort of indiscriminately determining who belongs and who doesn't, and we know that those decisions aren't being made with courts and with due process, and, that it's being made like this cop that pulled my brother over when he was 12, and knowing that there's so much bias and so much racism and so much ignorance that fuels those kind of choices, I worry for people of color all over this country.
Look, it's the same old recycled talking points from Michelle, only this time she's brought her brother along for the ride. Honestly, if I hadn't told you this interview was recent, you'd probably think this was a clip from the early 2010s. That's how little has changed. It's become a core part of her brand, where she focuses on identity-driven narratives that hit the same notes over and over again. And she's used it to cash out big checks. For instance, just 2 years ago, she reportedly earned around $750,000 for a single 1-hour speech on diversity and inclusion in Germany. Now that we have her absurd takes out of the way, let's hear Tucker's reaction.
My first response is it feels so antique. It feels so 2017. It's like literally nobody cares. Nobody cares at all. All of those talking points, people of color under attack. No, they're not. They're coming here by the millions because this is the safest country for everybody, no matter what your color is, or it was in any case. So that's just so old-fashioned. I mean, it's really like you expect her to say, let me fax you my thoughts on this. Because it's just like she's so out of it.
That is absolutely true. And just to clarify, it's not that people don't care. It's that they're tired of hearing the same message over and over, especially when nothing changes. And the last election cycles make that pretty clear. You saw Trump gaining ground across nearly every demographic, and it wasn't by accident. When people are struggling to pay for groceries, rent, or gas, and on top of that, watching crime go up in their neighborhoods, they are less likely to buy into the left's usual identity politics. And ironically, that's the exact strategy Obama used to win both of his terms. But back then, it was fresh. Now it just feels like a tired formula that no longer connects with the voter. Tucker then shifted gears to talk about Michelle's recent comments about her marriage to Barack, and that's where things really got interesting.
Everything she says is negative. We've been watching clips from her podcast over the past couple of weeks. Everything she says is negative. I mean, you would never know you are hearing from a woman who is first lady for 8 years, has become probably a billionaire by this point, is out on David Geffen's yacht every other summer, her estate in Martha's Vineyard, her daughters who went to these Tony schools. You would think you were listening to somebody basically like the wife of a George Floyd.
But she's just so miserable, and it's obvious and always has been. And I do think maybe so you look at something like that and you're like, okay, what are the lessons for me? You look at other people's lives and they either go up or down, they succeed or they fail, and you try to take important lessons for yourself in your own life. And one of the lessons that I've always thought Michelle Obama's life presented to the rest of us is take some time to focus on your marriage. If you're happy in your marriage, you can feel it, you can smell it. You're emanating a kind of peace, a tranquility. You're going home to a spiritual fortress, you know what I mean, with your spouse.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Over the past few months, Michelle has been taking shots at poor Barack nonstop. First, she skipped President Carter's state funeral. Then she didn't attend President Trump's inauguration, which was expected, but still part of the pattern. After that, she appeared on a podcast and casually said she's in her grown girl stage now. So apparently that makes everything okay? Isn't she in her 40s? Anyway, drop a like if you think we're witnessing a midlife crisis here. But it didn't stop there. In another interview, Michelle admitted that she had a miserable decade in their marriage, saying, quote, "People think I'm being catty by saying this. It's like there were 10 years where I couldn't stand my husband." Adding, quote, "And guess when it happened? When those kids were little." Based on most of the stories I hear from people around me, that's supposed to be the best years of any parent, but hey, Michelle isn't my circle, so maybe that's why.
And you do feel like for the grasping, climbing, acquiring class of which she's a charter member, like there's no time to focus on this one person in your own home or maybe even your own children. Like they're all about, I want to deal with Netflix and I want a Kennedy Center Honors Award and me. And they sort of miss the point, which is, in a normal life, your marriage is the core of everything. A happy marriage produces happy people and happy children. And I just don't think she spent a lot of time on that. I mean, she really dislikes her husband. Super obvious. I'm not just saying that to be catty. I think I'm trying to feel compassion for her, but her hostility toward the guy is like unbelievable. And it's been
everything
obvious
she says is negative.
About him,
how
for sure,
long have we known each other?
2007.
I can't even think of one negative comment you've ever made about Susie. I almost never say negative things about Doug. It's not, yeah, exactly. It's not like they're perfect. It's just like when I think about him, I don't immediately go to whatever's negative. I go to what's positive.
This kind of reminds me of Meghan Markle's shenanigans in a way. It's always about her, how she was a victim of racism, how she's aspiring to be a global female leader, and somehow make every topic revolve around you. No matter what the conversation is, she finds a way to insert herself into it. At a certain point, it starts to feel less like empowerment and more like a desperate attempt to stay relevant. Everything becomes about maintaining attention, no matter the cost. Even if it means airing out private family matters or throwing loved ones under the bus, it's all fair game as long as the spotlight stays on. There's an unfortunate level of self-centeredness here that is borderline narcissistic.
Is that like we always beat up on, rich white ladies because they're the most disruptive force in America, but that's unfair. It's not about color. There's something about the people with the most in our country that's really poisonous. They're the unhappiest, they're the most restless, they're the most self-involved. There is it's a theological principle that I think is worth saying out loud. Worshipping money, worshipping power, organizing your life so you get more of both does not give you peace or happiness. In fact, it seems to produce the opposite. People like Michelle Obama, who's drowning in Lake Me. I mean, Michelle Obama is literally going down for the third time into this pool of self-involvement, and you don't think she's going to come up again. Like she's dying of affluence, privilege, and self-obsession.
Yep, as much as Michelle would like people to believe she's all about fighting for different groups' rights or bringing serious issues into the national conversation, the reality tells a different story. I mean, just think about this. When Barack first entered office, he was worth $1.3 million. By 2017, that number had skyrocketed to $70 million. That is a 5,300% increase just being the president. So the next time you hear anything about the couple, keep in mind it's all about money, allegedly. For them, that comes first and everything else is just good marketing. But I'd love to know your thoughts here, so let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below. And if you want your friends to get their coverage from an independent source like myself, please share the video. It means the world. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.